the Board of Selectmen, Finance Committee, and various departments. And what we'd like to do today is we have a very tight schedule, and we're going to need to hold people to their allotted time. Don't feel obliged to use all of your time if you don't need it all. Any surplus time we will bank and use it at the end of the meeting in case there are people who didn't get everything said that they thought they needed to say during their allotted time. So we'll be cutting off at the appointed time and moving to the next department. And if there is further information that needs to be conveyed, we'll either take it up at the end of the meeting or at another time. So first, this evening, this afternoon, we have cemetery.
Hi. I'm Robin Kelly, the cemetery administrator. You want me to just go down? I handed out, everyone should have a handout in front of them with the answers to all the questions that were submitted to them.
I introduced us.
Oh, yep.
Lauren Nichols.
Cindy Eldridge.
Do you want to just take us on a brief tour of the highlights here?
Sure. The difference between the FY15 and the 16 proposed budget, there's an increase in salaries for the cemetery administrator. I'm going from part-time to full-time, adding 5 more hours a week to my position. It changes the budget for my salary from $45,000 to $48,76 to $55,186.08, which is an increase of $9,937.32. I'm also adding a new line item, which is a clothing allowance, which is $325. We have an increase in our water utilities. It's going from $1,373.11 to $1,441.74, an increase of $68.63. And then an increase in due subscription and mileage from $1,349 to $1,499, which is an increase of $150.
Any questions from the board or the committee? Yes. Yes.
You're going up 5 hours a week, so you're going up effectively almost 20% on the salary. I'm a little confused by that because
We had a 2% increase and then another 2% increase, and then adding the 5 more hours came up to the difference of $9,000.
So just 30 to 35 hours.
going from 30 to 35 hours. Effectively a 20% increase in wage. I'm having a hard time reconciling that.
Mr. Chairman.
2% wouldn't be much.
Yes.
The rationale for that was that Dave Ryan had brought this to my attention, that this position is an exempt employee, and it's, to my knowledge, I think one of the only ones in the organization that is exempt. But everyone else that's exempt works either the 35 or 40, whatever the standard hours are. And this one is 30, but we expect her to work whatever it takes to complete the job. And Dave Ryan had a real issue with the equity question in that how can we have an employee work, basically be expected to work as a full-time employee, but only be compensated at the 30 hours instead of the 35. So administration 100% supports this effort to have where the employee's already been designated as exempt. So we knew that was happening. We knew that consciously was happening, and that's why we went forward with that proposal.
Not arguing the support for it or whether it's appropriate or not. I'm just trying to get to the 20% additional dollars. So could you take us through that 20% additional dollars? I know there's, a couple 2% raise, which would be, it still doesn't get, I'm not sure it gets me to this 20% increase, so that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for whether it's
I got
appropriate
you.
or not.
Okay.
The 30 to
Did you
35,
get-
16% right there.
Yeah, and the two,
Yeah.
two,
Two and
four,
two.
That's about
it's
right.
20%.
I did the math, it works.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's 20% over this, which doesn't make any sense. I
Up laughing
suppose.
at that.
Okay.
Yeah, I suppose. I think in the future, it would be good to have that a little clearer.
Do you, because it's in the breakdown, do you have breakdown? Not in the report that I gave you, in the breakdown of the, from units from the budget. I just assumed you guys were all getting these.
Can I just ask on that topic, any benefits associated with that, any increase in benefits?
There's no
associated
increase
with
in
that?
benefits because 20 is the threshold, so from going from 30 to 35, it's irrelevant. If she was going from 18 to 25, that would be
And
relevant.
vacation time stays the same at all, I mean, even though it's a 35-hour week
I
versus
think
a 30-hour
we may
week.
prorate it differently based upon the 35. Now she'd be considered full-time as opposed to a prorated at 30 versus the 35. So there'll be a slight increase, I think, in probably vacation time and such.
Anything further, Linda? My question is, what is the additional workload that is requiring an increase in hours?
Well, I'm on call all the time. If somebody dies, I have to come in and either sell them a lot or do it. When I first started the position, we were burying roughly about 70 people a year. We are now burying about 100 people a year. When I first started the job, we were maintaining 60 acres. We have done 3 expansions, and we also have taken over Pine Grove Cemetery. So now we're up to 98 acres of cemetery space. So since I started this job, the increase in workload has grown quite a bit. And we're also coming into the baby boomer age. So each year it's going to go up more and more.
Yeah, Angela?
Skip, I don't think it changed that dramatically or plan to change in the future. I think it's just a recognition of what's been going on for the last couple of years. She attends like every funeral, you know, Saturday, Sunday, whatever it is.
Go ahead.
So then the other thing was the clothing allowance. I don't know if all you guys are familiar with, but I do a lot of ground penetrating radar work outside. And usually that time when we do it usually is a 4 to 5 hour window, and I usually do them in the winter time. You do a better scan when the ground is frozen. In my contract with the SEIU contract, which I've included in number 2, you can see that it clearly states that the town will provide adequate supply of foul weather gear, including jackets, gloves, and boots, rain gear to employees who must work in inclement weather. I also go out to sell lots and go to graves and meet with people selling lots year-round. So I just have never had it before, and I'm entitled to it, so I put it in. Any questions?
Any questions? Next?
I have a question,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
just to help you out. How much expense are you in your budget this year as a number, total? It's not in here.
For
Everything for cemetery.
cemeteries, we have a revolving account. We don't really we don't get a budget for all the things that we do at the cemetery. I sell lots and we have administrative fees. Then we have a revolving account. I usually collect about $45,000
Okay.
a year, and then I use that money to do maintenance and repairs at the cemetery. So the more money I bring in, the more money I get to spend.
Anything else? Next? Go ahead.
There are, you have the articles, you may want to make sure you cover on the articles.
Okay. I currently have, we have one article to repair the stones in Harwich Center Cemetery, which is $52,000. That's through the CPC. And we are also going to be putting in another CPC article, not till next year, to restore the crypts in Mount Pleasant and Island Pond Cemetery.
And what are, these are Articles 45 and 46?
I think they already addressed the CPC articles.
Okay.
The two articles that I think you guys put forward, the regulation changes.
Oh, the rules and
And then
regulations?
the other one is the South Meeting House.
The South Harwich Meeting House,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. So, the article for the rules and regulations, we are changing the density in the Howard Center Cemetery. The memorial garden that exists now is not in compliance with the rules and regulations of the town. And we are trying to bring those burials into compliance with the rules of the town.
Okay, and how about the land transfer?
The land transfer, I don't know if you've been familiar with the South Harwich Meeting House. We raised the building, and after we raised the building, we also had done an expansion on the right-hand side where we got an acre of property, which is now the parking lot. We had to change and consolidate the whole lot, so it has a new map and parcel. So the cemetery is going to be one lot, and then around the building needed a little bit of a bump out for utilities and stuff for the building itself.
So this is not a money article?
No, no. Neither one of them are money articles.
David?
On the rules and regs change, that's the only change, the density.
That and there's addresses in there. We updated the addresses so that GPS coordinates for people who are
Okay.
coming to the cemeteries as well. And then they, also in the monuments that are in that section where the new density issue is, the monument size has been changed because clearly you couldn't put a military marker on top of a space that's 6 inches by 8 inches. It just won't fit.
So the items that are bolded are the only changes that are made?
That is
in
correct.
there?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Andrew?
Linda just checked the list of articles that we have. She cannot find the article.
CPC.
Was
Oh, that's an existing one. It's still on the books. It's from, not, it's not on this for this year. It's
Oh, okay, all right.
We got confused.
I'm sorry. That was,
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much.
thank you.
Good job. I want to marketing.
Okay, next,
Maddie's going
okay, the tea time is now. Oh,
More stuff to work through.
Oh, good.
Glenn?
Come on, you guys go.
Thank you.
Can you introduce yourself and your colleagues?
Absolutely. So I'm Roman Greer, I'm the new director of golf for the town.
Welcome.
Just almost 3 weeks on the job, so I'm going to rely heavily on Sean Fernandez, the golf course superintendent, and Clem Smith, the head of the golf committee.
Great. Okay, I don't recall receiving any pre-material on this, so we'll have to take us through the highlights and the lowlights. You're familiar with the 8 questions?
Yeah.
All right. Basically, being the superintendent, I'm going to give you the best I can with, on the revenue side, not so much. I will try to help you out on that, but on the questions that we have, I try to answer them as best I can. Firstly, what are the differences between 15 and 16 proposed budget? Salary and wages for us are step increases only. And then for both the secretary and the head pros position were the only step increases that were in. Everyone else is already either at top step or working their way up through step increases. In the budget itself, on the expense side, the only changes is through the budget message was on electric and water. Everything else is electric level funded. And then on 5243 and 5341, we moved some money around. Through the intermunicipal agreement that we have going with both Brewster and Dennis, we had originally 2 years ago, allocated money to help bring in a company to help verify. Seeing that now the Brewster and Dennis is working well, we took that money and we allocated it within the budget and used it towards advertising because we saw that there's a shortfall in the solar season for advertising. We were running, basically not getting enough done, so we moved it into there. But everything else basically has been funded throughout the budget.
I just want to add, just on the salary and wages, not only was it steps, but we also did the 2% for the contract that was in place, so we made that adjustment, plus the 2% going forward. And as I think I've mentioned this at least a couple times before, this year it's 52.4 weeks in the year, so we have that 0.4. It's a longer fiscal year, so that does have an impact as well. So those adjustments, in addition to the steps, and the steps are included in that budget.
Also, too, because of the change in staff that we've had at Cranberry Valley in the pro shop area, the town administrator will have to make adjustments because the new director wasn't brought in at the old pay, and then we still have some structural changes that are going on now. So he'll have to make another adjustment later on.
The sharing the area with Dennis, I think you did first. Is that?
Oh, it's been working great.
It's been working great. So, I mean, it must be because you've added now a third town. So
Oh, yeah, I mean...
who schedules that? Do you schedule that?
We schedule. The three superintendents get together. We have great work. All the superintendents on Cape actually work really well together. But we get together on a regular basis, at least more than once a year, and we talk, and we just basically share dates. And then they come over. We have 8 machines going, whereas before we had 1. Basically, we get the whole night. We can get 12 holes done from 6 o'clock in the morning until noon. And then by the time they come around, we let them off. The first tea time is off at 1. By the time they come around, we're already getting out of their way. So it's worked out.
That's great.
Drastically.
Are there other opportunities using that same model?
The tough thing is it's great because the 3 of us can set up our timing perfectly. The tough thing is that when we get into, and we already do share a compressor with Brewster and with Dennis also to blow out the irrigation system. So instead of spending $2,000 a year to rent the compressor, we purchased it, and now the 3 of us share. So we've been looking at other aspects, but the tough thing is that each town does stuff differently. So right now, these are the things that work
But those
very
are good because those are single op uses almost.
Right.
Maybe
One time a year
once
that
or
it works.
twice.
Yeah, it works really good. We do it twice a year at the Cranberry Valley, and it works really well because we can concentrate a lot of labor in a short period of time to get the job done. So it works really well for us, especially in the shoulder seasons when we're not that busy. So it works out really well. All right, so that was basically our top budgeting priorities for 16 really is to maintain the same. I mean, last year we had a great year. I'd have to say as far as turf conditions and publicity out in the golf course with the major tournament that we had, we couldn't have gotten much better than what we did. I mean, it was a good year to grow grass too. But, I mean, we had the Publix Championship 2-day tournament, and we gave them basically private club conditions. So, I mean, everyone raved about it from top to bottom. So if we can do that and duplicate that again this year, we'll be happy. And then again, try to increase revenue in shoulder season. I mean, June, July, and August, we'll book solid. We're doing 6 to 6, so I don't think we're going to squeeze up too many more tea times between those times. But shoulder season for us is really the big time of year for us.
Sean, it's difficult for us. We weren't given anything. So number one, what was the budget number last year, total? And what's your total budget number for this year? And then from the revenue side, what did you produce last year? What's your budget this year? 4 numbers.
All right. For
Total budget 50.
total budget. Last number on the page. Total budget last year was $1,461,509,
Okay.
and the projected for this coming year is $1,482,443. So basically going up 1.4%.
Okay. And what was your revenue last year?
Revenue, I want to say it was 1.75.
What's projected this year?
We're hoping to do the exact same, if not
So
better.
flat?
Well, the hard one is the golf business is extremely difficult to project. I mean, if we can do the same with weather conditions what we've had right now, I'd tell you I'm going to do great. But
Well, unfortunately, it's not on your hands, it's on their hands. So maybe they can answer, especially the golf committee. What are you doing? I mean, if you're staying flat, that doesn't doesn't do much in terms, because your expenses are going up 1.5. What's the offset of that in terms of projected revenue, and what are you doing to offset having a flat year?
I think,
You got all the
Rich,
publicity that you did last
yeah.
year, and the course is in great condition. I buy the fact, the snow, the weather, but when you were projecting that, we were in the snow mode, and our thought was we were going to get through February, and then March we'd be going to die. So when you projected the numbers, you didn't know March. So I throw back to you, what's your thought process to increase 1.75?
Our expectation, our hope is that we can capitalize more on the shoulder season, especially in the fall. Excuse me. Another area that collectively I think we've looked at and realized that we haven't reached potential at all is in the area of our teaching facilities, the driving range, and that's another area that I think that we're going to make great strides. Roman has some great ideas for that, and we're in the midst of brokering a new strategy and a staffing component that will allow us, I think, to expand that, Rich, and cover that offset.
Roman, can you teach?
Yes.
And that's part of the contract?
Well, one thing we're looking at right now is I can teach. We're looking at licensing out the teaching on the driving range, and so somebody's there full time, and that would increase the revenue at the driving range and throughout the facility.
Okay, will there be another pro?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, well, that's in the works right now.
So your slot is still open for another pro?
Yes.
Okay. How many rounds of golf did you have? Whatever the physical, or whatever your, 2014, what was, 45?
Around 46,000.
Versus the year before?
It's been constant pretty much, between 45 and 46. The year before was around 45, last year was 46.
Okay.
So 45, 46. And understand, this year we're going to get firmer data for you, because in the past the data hasn't been as on point as it should have been. I think that you're going to see going forward a little bit more data taking, a little bit more transparency in exactly what we did, how we did it, and what's going to go forward.
When did your
That's
membership,
refreshing.
when did your membership start?
Actuality, we're in the transition now. Membership usually goes May 1st.
Okay.
But we're transitioning so that anytime after February 1st, you can start to re-up your membership coming.
How many members today?
Just about 900 members.
How many town residents?
700, around 700.
The other two are from?
Yeah.
Okay.
Chatham, Eastham, and Orleans. And that was part of our initiative to, capitalize on communities that didn't have a competing municipal operation. And the pool of those non-resident members, we surveyed that, and basically they were the strongest component of the non-resident memberships. And then there's a traditional non-resident member as well. Okay?
Sean, you mentioned advertising.
Yes.
Since you were so busy during the year, is that directed toward shorter season package with local BOEs and stuff? Or
Well,
how are you trying to direct that?
Actuality, because I kind of got thrusted up to the front of the house real quick.
Good for you.
We're kind of in the transition
I'll echo
situation. Yeah. So we're in the kind of transition. A lot of stuff was already, because it was a yearly for advertising through Comcast and through other things.
So you're still working your way through
So we're
that.
still working our way
How to,
through. But I think that Roman's ideas of for advertising and how he wants to go, I think we're going
And
to
I
be able
think,
to go
Glenn, you may have
forward.
already reached out to hospitality.
Exactly. That's part of that initiative that never really came to fruition. And, excuse me, another thing too is the committee realized that, while the targeting off Cape over the canal is important, that local advertising too can reap great benefits, especially as far as the membership base is concerned. And those are some things that we're going to focus on as well.
Okay. I'd like to see you take more advantage of your designation of a green harvest crop.
Well, you mean the Audubon?
The Audubon Initiative.
Yeah. That's a big deal for a lot of people that worry about, fertilizer, pesticides and stuff. And That sends a strong signal to local residents as well as.
You know, and that's, and the golf committee talks about it, the hardest thing is that in the golf business, as far as superintendents too, and I know the pros on the other side, we don't tune our own horns. We usually just go about and
But
do
when you
our
advertise,
business.
you have to.
And I understand that. We're finding that out the hard way. But, you know, we've been at Cranberry Valley since I've been there 16 years. We've been doing this. We've been trying to be greener. We've been trying to do the things the way that it's supposed to be done. And then if we can save money and be greener, great, let's do it. And for the environment and for the town. So we've been trying to do that more and more. Less fertilizer, more organics, more cultural practices. It's a little bit
I
more
understand
labor
all that.
intensive.
I want you to your own point.
That's what we're going to be doing. That's what that's why we did Audubon.
Right.
And as we do things, you'll see it come up more. Like, perfect example is, Chris gave me a card of the company out of Falmouth about the irrigation pond in front of you on the capital plan. We're going to work into articles. This works right into the articles. And I've been working on trying to, instead of dredging the pond, trying to clean it up on its own, naturally. So I'm working with the company. She's giving me some information. We're going to do some water tests and see that we can control the algae that we have in our irrigation ponds more naturally, and that's how we're already starting that process now, so that we can save the $200,000 or $180,000 in dredging and get it to do itself naturally.
Angelo and then Peter.
But I think everybody has to realize that the golf course and golf committee are working in a very difficult environment since total golf rounds nationally are declining, which is, you know, one issue. And unfortunately, a lot of the membership of, former membership of Cranberry Valley are getting older, and there's a little bit of a turnover. So to stay even or slightly up is a very, very difficult task in that arena. And I think everybody's learned that you have to maintain the course to get people to come. So I think the ploy or tactics they're using is right. Just go close, advertise in the off-season, and keep the course.
Well, you know, I'll tell you, it's nice, and I know Roma will, in our business, when you have other superintendents and other pros calling your place to find out what you're doing, the way that you're doing it, it means that you're doing something right. So it's nice to know
Well,
that.
I hope you don't tell them.
Trade secret. But you can sell it. It's nice because, and I tell them, actually, to be honest with you, that, you know, 16 years ago, the town of Harwich gave me a chance to make the changes that we needed to make, and that we've done it over a period of time. It wasn't built, you know, just, oh, throw money at it, it's going to work. It's been a structural change in how we've maintained the golf course and how we've done, you know, just from capital purchases to, and maintaining the golf course now. Just, if it gets like 7 years ago, we did the bunkers, and now we're maintaining the bunkers now. We're not going to wait another 7 years and then redo the bunkers all again. We're maintaining them as we go, so we don't have those problems we had 7 years ago. Those are the structural changes that we're in the philosophy thinking that we're changing that to go forward, so that we don't have those issues where we have to go spend $3.5 million, $4 million again. You know, we'll be able to maintain this golf course the way that we've been doing it now, with small little projects here and there, and just continue to maintain it. Keep it up.
Peter?
Ron, welcome.
Thank you.
And a chance to say hello yet, and I think that this board certainly, once you get the season started and whatnot, look forward to having you guys come in and talk a little bit more about the plans for the golf course. But I guess two questions. One is, you've been here 3 weeks. Have you had any surprises, things you didn't expect? And number two, it occurs to me that getting the youth involved, getting them excited about playing golf, maybe the future when all of us are dead, but I mean, it's, you know, 20 years from now, the people who are going to be playing on that golf course are the ones that are just learning now how to play golf. And I think you've had some experience in the past about getting youth programs going.
It's
and,
critical.
Just interested in what the thoughts are there for getting that going.
Great. As far as surprises on the job, I've relied on these guys heavily with the number stuff. That's why I'm letting them do all the heavy lifting right now. We've had a lot of operational discussions on starting the season. There were some changes put in place that the membership as a whole has wanted clarification on. So there's been a lot of meetings going on and getting everybody on the same page. We changed days of men's leagues and ladies leagues and things like this, and some of our policies. And so there's been a lot of information exchange going on with people and a lot of meetings on that. So I think that has a surprise. That's eaten up a lot of my time in my first 3 weeks is meeting with the head of these men's and ladies associations and really working out the details. I'm happy to say everything's going well there, and so that's going to be a smooth transition, I anticipate. You're right, when Sean talks about the, you know, our membership as a whole is retired membership in general. And so it's critical for the health of the golf course to have that next generation in the works and coming. So I have a lot of experience with junior programs. I'm the junior golf chairman for the Cape Cod PGA, so I oversee the whole program on the Cape Cod PGA, and I've been in that capacity since 2012. So I oversee the Junior Golf Association tournament program that goes around the Cape. I'm very in tune with what's going on the Cape as far as the kids programs go, and it's something I really want to bring to Cranberry Valley is a good, strong junior program. I think that's critical to the health of a golf course. So what we're doing right now, as I mentioned before, we're looking for a full-time teaching pro. We're going to have a licensed teaching pro. I plan to be very involved in that process and the scheduling. I've already talked to the folks at the community center about starting some programs and having communication with them about whatever our junior programs are this summer. I know a number of very successful programs nationally that I will oversee bringing to the golf course. Depending on if I'm going to teach them or if we're going to have the licensed teaching pro, I'm not sure yet, but we will. You'll see a strong junior golf presence at the golf course, that's for sure.
Anything else?
Sean, you mentioned one of your articles, Sean, one of the irrigation ponds. The system that you're getting, is that, you know, what I know as solar bees to clean it up, or?
Well, in actuality, I've been working with Solar Bee and trying to get them to give me some numbers. We put a placeholder in there for that, but we're looking at other technology also. One of the companies is out of Woods Hole, and then also through the irrigation company that I work with called Rainbird, which uses sonar to break down the algae.
I don't.
I'm just looking at as much as I can and try to do the best product, but as far as price too, try to keep it as low as I can.
Just to add on that, if I could, we did, Sean brought the solar bee concept, which is basically just, you know, moving and circulating the water to get better results. Peter and I and the Urbanos went out to a company, Ecological Designs, or I don't remember the exact name of it. In oceanography, and they had a process where they have a barge that has kind of an active system that floats and cleans up the water. And we wanted to, instead of just having an article that specifically targeted one technology, we wanted to broaden that out to see if there was other options out there at a lower cost. At least from the presentation they did with us, they had indicated that they were going to be a lower cost. So we've expanded the article to give us the ability to have them come in and offer a different solution.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, depending on how the progress goes on, if more is needed, that you never know, it might be eligible for CPC.
Yeah. What I'm trying to do is trying to put it all together as quick as I can, because I know that obviously we're in between a tight window, but the issue that we have is, I'll be honest with you, whatever works in the pond, that's all I want. We want clean irrigation water, so however we get there is the way that I'm going to work. So, right?
I'm glad you're taking another look at solar because the experience so far in the Cape has not been positive on solar being effective. And I've asked the Cape Cod Commission to try to figure out what some of the criteria are for success versus not success, because it's been sold for sewer systems, so it must be effective in that confined environment. But in ponds, we've tried several here in off Cape where it hasn't been effective. So I'm a little, I'm glad you're taking another look at other technologies before you jump into that.
Correct.
I don't have the evidence, at least I've seen, that it works.
And to be honest with you, the research that I've done so far is the exact same thing that I came across. I haven't seen the results to warrant the spending of $50,000. So what I said was, well, that can't be the only game in town, so let's look around and see what else we can get. So that's what we've been doing. So.
We're also looking, you know, some technology, maybe the same technology, clean up Finkel's Pond.
Correct.
Much bigger pond, but you know, if you can do it on a small scale, maybe you can do that.
Exactly. I think anything else, we got articles still to go through.
Well, you've got two other articles.
Yep.
Right? The reshape and resurface 10th and 14th tee and repair drainage on 10th and 13th.
Correct. And with the funds coming from the maintenance fund that we have established. Both those areas on the golf course, if you played the 10th hole at Cranberry Valley, it's wet all the time. It happens to be a low spot on the golf course. We have conservation area to the right of to there that just backs up the water. It just happens to be almost at the water table.
Well, when the Finance Committee reviewed these articles a few days ago, these articles were about the fastest discussions we had because of the funding source.
Exactly. It makes it easier when you say, oh, it's already taken, no problem.
I thought you were going to say because you're worried about the golfers getting wet.
You guys doing the work yourselves?
No, actually, we'll be going out. We'll be going out. Normally, what we've been doing is that right after town meeting and we get approval, July 1st, I start the process of going out and getting numbers and getting the bids that we need. And then once I get it, I bring it back to the golf committee and give them my plan of what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. And we usually don't start the work until after clubs, when the play is slow.
Yes, yes, Richard.
Beyond the articles, I just want to welcome Roman and the Finance Committee and the Capital Outlay Committee have had a long-standing working relationship with Clem and the Golf Committee. And I think after town meeting, when we get through the articles and this, this Senate hearing, it looks like, okay, we'd like to have you in on a more casual basis and discuss, some of the plans and some of the interpretation of what the golf committee wants to do. And I think it'll work. We've worked with it for years. One comment I did want to make is that a couple of weeks ago we had the Chamber of Commerce in here, and they in fact made a comment to us that they're working with the golf to bring golf to Harwich. So I'd like to see how that is going to be effective in terms of promoting Harwich. I'm handling both articles.
Exactly.
So I got promoting Harwich and I got the golf. So they made the comment. We all thought it was positive, and it's certainly going to help you. So
Yeah, that's a relationship that we've been trying to develop, and I think with Roman's help and giving that a little kickstart, it'll be much more positive in the future too.
Yes, Linda.
I think just to make sure that the people who will be watching this is that since we the implementation of the Golf Capital Improvement Fund,
Yes.
the golf people, the golf department, the golf committee are funding over $100,000 this year in improvements to the golf course through their own resources. And
Exactly.
I think that's commendable.
It's just given us a great opportunity to do that, and especially like the drainage article. I mean, at face value, you'd say, well, they have some drainage problems, but there are bigger goals in mind too, as far as weatherproof golf. Sometimes when it's rainy, because of our clay base, the push-up nature of the golf course, enhanced drainage may give us better capabilities to put carts out there where in the past we just haven't been able to do that. So all those little things go together.
See, I thought weatherproof golf was an app on your phone.
It is.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Richard.
Roman, are you going to initiate any type of programs to faster play?
Yes. Well, what I'm really hoping to do in my first year is really analyze the data. Well, one thing I've looked at is we've had kind of incomplete data as far as rounds go and what the round breakdown is between members, guests. I'm really going to analyze the pace of play data, especially because I know just in my time here that there's a lot of chatter about that certain groups are very slow, and that affects the revenue you make. If you have that reputation of a really slow golf course, that affects how many people are going to call to come play and pay to play. So we're going to really analyze that. I have a number of ideas and ways of just through training our player assistant people on the golf course, our rangers, and identifying parts of the golf course that are causing pace of play issues. There's a number of ways to tackle it. Because I haven't been involved in an operational day on the golf course yet where we've had golfers, I'm going to really collect the data first, but that will be something we'll be looking to tackle.
Is that could one of the sub-efforts be having players, you being at the first tee perhaps?
Yeah.
Or the golf committee being at the first tee, and perhaps advising the golfers that they shouldn't be playing from gold and blue, but perhaps turning up to white,
Sure.
in a non-embarrassing situation, which would certainly, if you move that up You move that up 20 yards in every hole, you're going to pick up at least a half hour.
No, I agree with that. And in the golf world in general, coast to coast is not playing from the appropriate tees.
Exactly.
They like to bite off the whole golf course and then shoot a terrible score. We'd rather see everybody move up a little bit, but it is an issue. I've already talked to Sean about that. You know, it's one of these goofy things to talk about here, but your senior men will not go and play from red tee markers. I don't know if you're a golfer, but they just won't. So if there's tee markers that are red, they'll find that, you know, offensive to think that they should play from what's considered a ladies' tee. So they'll play from a harder tee and they'll clog up the golf course. That's a problem we'll face. So Sean and I have already discussed silver tee markers being out there. That'll be an option. I mean, it's goofy things to talk about, but they're important. It's
Well,
very
the
important.
last time I played the course, I happened to bump into your chairman. I was going to 10, and I just did 2 hours and 45 minutes for 9, and he had just finished up for over 5 hours.
Yeah,
So
okay.
we had a pleasant discussion.
I've heard this.
That was my last play there.
I have tons of experience with working on face-to-play issues. It's a challenge. It's not as easy as just implementing a plan and saying it's going to happen, but it's a lot of it's through training the staff on how to handle things, providing them with the right resources to track the golfers on the golf course to see where they are, where they should be, and how you approach them and how you approach fixing problems.
And you'll get more rounds.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say this has been the most informative and productive meeting that we've had in my tenure with the golf operation.
He's aging more to come.
Thanks.
Is the driving range open now?
We'll be opening, well, I'll give you a tentative plan, hopefully, is we're going to get about another inch of rain. Looks like between tomorrow and Friday. We're hoping that between there and Friday that we've got about 75% cover of snow right now. I'm hoping that by Friday, I lose about half of that, and that by next week, we're opening up sometime either next week or by Saturday of next week. And the range hopefully sometime middle week next week.
Thank you.
And then one thing I did want to say was the parking lot, we're fine with that, it was off. Parking lot.
Yeah, just in terms of we have sufficient resources to make temporary repairs for this year, and then we'll come back with a more master plan at a later date.
Any other questions from the Board of Selectmen? We got the Finance Committee? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we have Water Department on for 4:45, and I'm kind of wondering if they didn't get the memo about the change of location. I don't know if you want to
your
maybe do
department.
DPW.
Yeah, well, we...
And that's your department.
Because I'm happy to answer the questions. What I'd like to do is I'll step out to call them, but if you move
Does
DPW.
anyone have a problem if we swap DPW for water? Does Liz here? Waterways at the end.
Move them on.
To the very end.
I'll make a call and just check how they are. If not, I'm prepared to comment on it.
Okay.
And we want the water department.
We want to.
So is that a yes or a
Yeah,
no?
we're up, we're ready.
Yes, you're up, Lynn.
It's good. I like.
Hey.
Oh.
Handouts. I think we can read.
Made the print big just so I could read it one of these days.
We'll take this one.
Why is it
I
doing
used to
that
carry
snow
around
place?
glasses.
Oh,
it's a bad joke.
Bad joke.
Bad joke.
The obviously doesn't understand the town's policy.
Go ahead. Tell us what you want us to know about the budget.
In conclusion, Mr. Chair.
Fine, Jeff.
Hi. Lynn Cooper, DPW Director, of Kim Berube, Administrative Assistant. She's the brains behind the operation.
We know that.
To state the obvious. Answered the 6 questions. I have an accompanying spreadsheet of all the DPW expenses. And if you'd like, I'll go by those changes if you would prefer, or just skip to the major ones.
Yeah, why don't we just do the major one?
Okay.
We don't want to talk about snow and ice.
No, we don't.
Wonderful weather we're having. You know, I need to broach the ones that I've worked for the town for quite a while. 2005 was the last time we had a major winter like this. This the last 6 or 7 weeks I've never seen. I'm born and raised here, except for 4 years in the military. Hottest winter I've ever seen. Most expensive winter for the town as well. And on that note, I think the staff and all our contractors did a fabulous job, and I've even heard on the radio people saying how good the roads in Harwich were.
Unbelievable.
And we've been hearing that too.
Well, the staff does a great job. I just try to lend my support and guidance. With that, I'll cut right through to the major one, which is the purchase services. That line item runs the disposal area expenses. We all knew the Cavanta contract expired this past January 1st. The previous fiscal year, we had to, since the contract was on a calendar year and we budget on a fiscal year, we had a major an increase in expenses last year. We also had an increase in the residential sticker rate and some other fees. Thanks to Mike Camara and ABC stepping to the plate and putting some pressure on Cavanta and the Board of Selectmen for taking a risk with a new process, we saved, I'm going to say almost this $146,000. We saved $10 a ton off the bat on 8,000 tons of MSW we produce each year. And for signing that contract, he gave us a $5 cut in our C&A for 5,000 tons a year. So $105,000 right off the top for signing with ABC. That's the major increase, $146,000. Most of that is attributed directly to the new contract. We went from $37.51 to this full year at $55 a ton.
When does that take effect?
That took effect this past January 1st. So I know we were in front of the board with numerous presentations for several years. Cavanta actually started this back in 2008, if you can believe that. Hey, sign on the dotted line, we'll cut you a break now. They lost about half the business they had out of the Tier 1 communities, which were the communities that got the plant built in the first place down here because of in my opinion, the games they were playing.
Like, and Chris, sometime later in the summer, maybe can we get ABC to come in and tell us where they are with the new plan?
Absolutely. It's not progressed as quickly as they would like. He anticipates being up and running sometime this summer. He made provisions. We're going to the Middleborough landfill currently. The travel distance is about the same, although it's not as nice dumping in a landfill as it is a concrete floor. But they've made accommodations to suit us and not adversely affect our operation. There's also, believe it or not, our MSW has been relatively strong along with the C&D. So building activity has been strong. Revenue has been strong. In 2014, we turned in $1.9 million out of disposal area operations. I anticipate exceeding that this current year and probably over $2 million for the FY16 that we're budgeting. And this is all the expenses. You'd have to obviously add salary and wages to that to get to a total number if you were isolating all of those costs. But it's not just the increase in the MSW contractual rate. Business is up. And I'm always fond of saying that trash is a leading economic indicator. Another major increase was vehicle parts and supplies. That is an area in which we are consistently underfunded. I think FinCom and Chairman Patterson got tired of seeing me all the time for some emergency fund transfers. We're into it, I believe, 42,000 so far. Thank you. 43,000. Thank you for this last transfer. It was suggested by
Emphasis on the last.
Yes. It was been suggested both during the capital outlay committee meeting and my interactions with Chairman Patterson to increase that to something that would be more sustainable. And the $30,000 directly reflects that mark. The maintenance and supplies.
Wait,
Yes, sir.
Sorry to
Mike,
interrupt.
that vehicle supplying parts, are for your department or for any other department?
Yes, we take care of the entire town's fleet, including all of the...
I understand
police.
that, but part of, what percent, round figure, what percentage
One,
of the 100?
we have what, 165 internally, 33 for fire, 33 for... Well, it was 165. The increase would make it 195 for DPW vehicles, 9,000 for town hall vehicles, and 33 each for fire and police vehicles. The fire and police budgets, I'm not going to represent, we don't run out, but usually if they can either hold off on some maintenance, or we've been able to accommodate, so they're not parking vehicles, but those budgets are extremely tight. And this increase, $30,000 was for DPW.
Go ahead.
Draw attention, the maintenance and repair supplies, increased that 9,000. I actually requested more, negotiated this with Mr. Clark in the budget process. That is allowing us to do more in-house repairs to town facilities. We brought on Sean Libby last year, our building maintenance manager, and he has done a fabulous job. As much resources as we could give him, he is perfectly capable of bringing a lot in-house and saving a lot of money. We're not done. We did ask for some EOSs, some elevation services, of which he asked for 3. And, a plumber, an electrician, and a custodian, who are all under his auspices. He is a great guy, and as much resources as the board would see fit, he could turn it around in spades. Meaning, whatever we can provide him, he will save the town. No question asked. He's done a phenomenal job. Talk to any department head that has jurisdiction over a building, and I think would convey the same thing. But this was actually just each line item. We have one item for plumbing supplies, one electrical supplies, et cetera, building supplies. We just added this amount. I think it was, what, 1,500 a category across the board to give them a little more. This by no means solves the town's problems. It's just a small increase to help them bring a little more in-house. And then down at the bottom, we have capital expenses. That is simply for a working gator for the park department. We had that in last year's budget. It was last year's article. It was pulled out because there was a misunderstanding about the nature of that article.
Define for us, working gator.
Pardon me?
What is it?
It's a workman gator. It's a 6-wheel, small kind of utility dump truck. You can drive around the parks and move material around, infield mix, and it dumps. They have one now that's 20-something years old, and they can't, it's past its useful life. Any questions on the expense budget? Salary and wages, we are adding 1 person, which was recently approved by the Board of Selectmen. This was a I had filled scale house hours when the full-time scale house operator is off. We have always been filling those hours with part-time help. We had Walter Chenal pass away late last fall. I had Joanne Clancy, a former assistant accountant, resign, and I had another person we were utilizing, a custodian in town, say she could no longer do the job all at once. So this position made sense to add. I originally had it as one of the EOS elevation of services requests, and then when all this kind of snowballed, I went to Mr. Clark and said, let's do this now. It is $39,000 and change, and we removed $30,000 in part-time help. So it's essentially a $9,000 position plus benefits.
Yeah, plus benefits, it's FTE, isn't
Well, the benefits aren't in the department budget. It's handled.
it? No, but it's still cash out of the taxpayer's pocket.
Yes.
So going from the part-time, which didn't have benefits, presumably, now. So now you're talking about more like...
Probably 10, I'm gonna guess 10 grand.
Well, I think if it was a family plan, it'd be 21,000. If we were to hire a single guy, then it would be significantly less. I would anticipate, potentially much less. But the point's still taken.
I think it's just important to know that the full cost of this change is not just $9,000 or whatever you just calculated. It doesn't include the benefits.
Well, this will also really enhance our level of service there. We were having difficulty filling this job with part-time and retired help. The job becomes, this time of year, it's not bad. You get into the spring, yard cleanups, summer, you're trying to monitor all the contractors where we have several hundred people on account, the scale traffic and the residential traffic. We'll do 2,000 vehicles on a Saturday in the summer. It's almost too complicated and busy of a job to handle it as we have in the past. We have a gentleman that's working there now that has temporarily filled his position, who's doing a real good job, and I anticipate we'll have better service. So it's not just a one-for-one slot plus the benefits in my view. Other than that, the only other increases are the contractual increases that have been talked about, the 2% that was in January, the 2% this July, and they rolled the longevity payment into base pay, which from my perspective will help with recruitment activities. And I've been having difficulty having to go back to the street 2 or 3 times in recent years to get qualified people. Particularly trailer drivers. There's been difficulty. Our salary is not competitive with the private sector in that regard. Our priorities are to support our articles. We have a DPW facilities repair that includes building siding, gutters, air compressor, the boiler, which is on its last leg, original boiler to a 27? Oh, they switched to gas. That's still 20. Still 20 years old.
Yeah. I want to say it was 94 or 95 they switched to gas.
And the trench drain down the center is basically falling apart. So that's that article for $156,000. The road maintenance, I originally requested $700,000. It's typical. We have some good news this year from the state. The Governor Baker, immediately taking office, released the last $100 million that had always been appropriated but not released by the governor. The legislature the last couple of years had funded Chapter 90 at $300 million, and we never saw the last $100 million of it. That means we went from approximately $700,000 to just over $1 million. In addition, we just got the pothole repair money, and we're going to get another $103,000 that actually has to be spent by June. We'll have no trouble spending that, rest assured. So we were able to drop the request, and after discussions, Mr. Clark wanted, had that number originally as a 0, and I explained to him in a meeting that there's some things that Chapter 90 just can't do for us, and there's situations that we need to have an article to turn to for repairs. And the last one, the vehicles, is a new street sweeper and a disposal area road tractor. The street sweepers replaced a mechanical street sweeper that has been costing us a fair amount of money. They are high maintenance vehicles to begin with. This one, my mechanic was wanting to spend $30,000 on. I said, hold off, we need to switch things up. A road tractor has approximately 600,000 miles on it. Actually, both of them do. We have two 1998 CH600s. Yes, I used to drive them back in the day. And they're getting past their useful life. And we have one on for this year and one planned for next year to replace. Any expenses that can be deferred? Not to my knowledge. Revenue, I talked about the FY14 disposal area turned in $1.9 million. Put that in perspective, previous FY13 was 1.66, if memory serves me correctly. So we've had some significant growth with the disposal area. Obviously, we had a fee increase last year, which helped to absorb some of the increased costs. I will be presenting shortly. I'm researching in the presence of gathering information and researching what our surrounding communities are, and we'll be making a recommendation in the next few weeks to the board for your consideration for FY16 fees. I try to wait until this time of year so we know what our neighbors are doing and find out what the private contractors that could be construed as our competition are doing. I think we've run a real good operation. The closer I get to the fiscal year with those numbers, the better off I end up predicting a good number.
A question for you, Lynn. FY15, ignoring the snow and ice problem, what is your total spend compared to what's in your budget for 16?
Total expenses, salary, everything.
Everything.
Okay, 15 was $3,855,936. FY16 is $4,161,320.
And what percentage of that roughly is that an increase?
Well, I can get my calculator out. The vast majority of that is basically the Cabanta contract, the $146,000 increase there, the $30,000 for vehicles, and then the salary and wage, which is all contractual, the 4% and so forth.
And the gas utility increase is dramatic.
That is per budget instructions, which were take your actual FY14 and then place a number to it. That did. It took us by surprise as well. 7.9%. Thank you, Mr. Houston. Part of that may have been, we had a pretty bad winter last year. This winter didn't turn to winter until January 26th. It just hasn't let up. So I think the severity of last year contributed to that.
So Peter was kind enough to run the numbers. It's almost an 8% increase, which is certainly more than 2.5%.
Mr. Chairman, we do have a breakdown. There's actually a 4.7 is related to salaries, and 11.7 is related to the highway expense.
I'm sorry.
Which I think is
The salaries would be difficult to discern, but I'm sure Diane probably has it. Because of the longevity payments, which was an objective of the Board of Selectmen to get rid of, and Mr. Clark successfully negotiated with their union to get rid of the longevity payments, they were pulled from one area that was separate and put into base pay.
Right. I think that the 11.7 is probably related to the Cabanta charges that we have in the budget, which
Yes.
is what's driving that.
Yes.
Yes, Rich.
I think just looking over the article, so the sweeper and the tractor that currently exist are going to be replaced.
That's correct.
Okay. And
And traded.
that's what I'm wondering. Okay.
Absolutely.
So there will be no more maintenance or ongoing expense. We're not going to go past the order to see this sweeper.
That sweeper already has a home, believe it or not. Local contractors expressed interest in it, and they'll purchase it from the vendor that would plan to purchase a new one on if approved.
Wonderful.
Any other questions for Lynn? Yeah, Noreen?
Just a detail. The gas utility we were talking about, is that natural heating gas? It's not gasoline?
Yes, ma'am, no, natural gas. Gasoline, if I may take a second, we just got the county bids in, it was extremely favorable. I don't remember, it was like $2.32. I'm going to be making a recommendation to the board.
241 is, I was just looking at that.
It was with the state Commonwealth tax. It was
I think it was 241. I happen to be looking at that today.
diesel was $2.41 and gas was like $2.10. 10.
Wow.
It was significantly less than last year. We bid that at almost, we as the Cape Towns through the county, bid that at almost the optimum time. And we've got a fixed rate locked in for a year.
So just to complete, so the line above it, you have heat and light, so you have some facilities that have gas heating and some that have electric heat, or?
I believe all of our facilities are gas, heated by natural gas, with the exception of the transfer station where the operator sits is electric. It's a very small area, but that is electric.
Any other questions for them? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we're back to water.
Alan, do you want me to join you up here?
Say what?
Do you want me to, you and I?
Sandy's coming.
Oh, Sandy's coming too?
Yeah. So she should be right along. There's trouble parking. There's no place to park.
So do we need to wait, Alan?
What?
Do we need to wait for her?
Yeah, she should be right here. The only place, I parked out.
Yeah.
No, she's the brains of the operation.
Right.
Yeah, you can join us over here too.
Alan, we're gonna swap you with Harwich because I see
okay.
John is here. And I think Matt is planning to come as well. Do you mind starting without Matt, John? I mean, don't feel pressure.
Or we can do the wastewater.
Yeah, maybe we should do that.
Give Matt a chance to
Yeah. So wastewater.
So wastewater, I guess I'm going to do that component.
Okay.
Hopefully. On the wastewater, we have several articles that are related to the wastewater. I'll just take these in the order here that they're in the articles. Article 24 is complete the Colebrook nitrogen attenuation study. That was originally estimated to be $100,000. At last year's town meeting, there was a decision made to split that over 2 years because of the phasing of it. So last year was 50, and then this is the second portion of that. We did have a presentation done probably about a month ago, and that work is progressing. Certainly as they look at a study over time, they need to do the research over time so that they are analyzing that. So that is, I would anticipate on time and on budget. It's probably a good way to say that. So this is the second component. The next one, and certainly if you have any questions, just stop me during each one. 25 is the finalize the comprehensive wastewater management plan regulatory review. That's $75,000. Just on that, really what the town is attempting to do is to get to the final stages of having a CWMP, Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan, on file and ready to go. This $75,000, it's hoped, will bring us to the final element. Why I say as hoped is because it is a little bit of a moving target. As some of us went to a presentation, and it depends on what the regulator does, whether they're going to add additional conditions or not add additional conditions. So once the CWMP plan is submitted and approved by DEP, that will end out the phase of really getting the plan adopted. Once the plan's adopted, then we'll move into kind of construction phases, and then the construction will be per the different phasing of the project. So this $75,000, it's hoped, will get us to the finish line of having a plan on file and approved.
Chris, can I just comment on the first two articles? The Colebrook attenuation study, as Chris said, we thought that would cost us $100,000. We didn't have the funds to do that all last year, so it was $50,000 last year. As Chris said, $50,000 this year. The point I want to add to that is that we aren't doing this project alone. The Fisheries and Wildlife are working with the Harwich Conservation Trust, who also put in manpower and expense to help study that area and see how it can be configured better to protect the wetlands, but also remove nitrogen. So it's not just the towns doing that; it's a combined effort. So it's added to that. And there's folks there from wastewater. Just to add to the plan, because that's been a lot of discussion, we have Dave Young, who's consultant we're using from CDM, and Peter DeBacher. As Chris has said, our hope is to finish the planning stage by the end of this year, and then it would go into an implementation stage. The projects we have going on this year, however, that we're using primarily Dave and his group on, that are important to us. One is how to best negotiate a contract with Chatham. If we decide to, we have a contracting team, we decide to go that way, there's a lot of information needed and how best configure that, what our options are that they're helping out with. As Chris has stated, we developed a CWMP based on the direction from EPA and DEP, which is primarily focused on sewering first and using biological treatment secondly to reduce costs. They've tipped that around now and they're asking us to concentrate first on the biological activities, which is going to cause us to go back and look at some more help in how we construct that CWMP. And so it's $75,000 now, but all these will hopefully decrease our costs going forward and give us a much better chance of being accepted by DEP and EPA and ultimately by the, unfortunately, the Conservation Law Foundation, who has us in, has sued us now, put that in abeyance for several years to prove that we can develop a plan and then stick to it. And so this will get us to those steps. To pull out now would jeopardize those actions and it'd be very negative effects.
Yes, Richard.
Within the warrant is the capital budget, and the capital outlay committee did vote no for that $75,000 because it's an ongoing target, and we needed better definition. And
Yeah, I recall that
it
discussion.
was a unanimous decision by the capital outlay not to fund the $75,000.
Right, and the reason for that was that when it first came up several years ago, it was a big number. I can't remember what it was, maybe $500,000, and then the next year there was another $500,000, and that's when it was disclosed that this was a multi-phase project. So we asked, well, how many phases are there? And I think we were told 3 or 4. And this would make, I think, the 5th year in a row that we are spending significant money for this planning. And I know Larry has explained to me, as he just explained, that this is important money to spend, but I think in terms of anticipating what we're likely to see next year, it's probably going to be another slug of some amount until we get through with the project, I would think.
Our hope would be, there's no guarantees, our hope would be that we would be able to submit the CWMP this year and get buy-off, and then we could start the actual planning of hooking the Chatham and doing those activities. So it'll still be money, but it wouldn't be a planning stage. It would be a capital outlay to do construction or put in pipes.
Like engineering.
Like engineering, yeah.
I do think
There is no guarantee.
there's probably a light of...
Excuse me, Angela.
Just comment, last night, Monday night, we voted to pull the article dealing with the setting up of the various committees, et cetera, et cetera. Does that have a negative impact on completing the CWMP? Or is there anything in there that they need to complete it?
I don't, Dave confirmed this, but I don't believe that is, would
Sorry, I didn't hear the
effect.
question.
I think the question, to restate it, is that Monday night's meeting, the board made a decision that because we retweaked the special legislation to create a wastewater committee, does that have a negative impact to delaying us in terms of the CWMP? I would guess, I would venture that I think what they're looking for is for the town to have some kind of structure, some kind of plan in place. And I think that if we at least present and say this is what we've come to so far, because this is really the second iteration, that hopefully that wouldn't negatively impact us in the long run.
Yeah, I think it's just as long as you notify the Cape Cod Commission that as part of the 208, you plan to designate Board of Selectmen or whoever in town to be your authorized wastewater authority at this time. That would cover it.
Do we also have to deal with how we anticipate being paid for this in terms of who pays for the...
One of the things that we're missing to file the CWMP, actually, it's one of the two things. One is, as Mr. Ballantyne indicated, was to update the previous plan based on the 208 study that's recently come out, final, not public yet, but has been filed with DEP, is to put in a cost recovery model so that they can do the affordability assessment when they evaluate the plans.
So we don't have that.
The Wastewater Implementation Committee has endorsed the plan. We're in the process of finalizing that to submit to the Selectmen as their recommendation.
Our hope is to bring that forward in the next couple of weeks.
The other thing,
No, but we don't need to go through town meeting to go through the
Just need a
DEP.
direction.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
just in terms of, Mr. Chairman, the other thing is on the Conservation Law Foundation, as part of that settlement agreement, has in there, I think there's a deadline of September of 15, that the judge is going to be looking for an actual plan to come forward. So I think we are starting to see some actual hard dates. Hopefully the judge will not have a sense of humor and will say that we need to do this. So I think we are reaching decision points will be coming up in the next budget cycle.
And the last one is the 500 grand for the Muddy Creek, right?
Yeah, on the Muddy Creek project, I think I've talked about this publicly several times, but basically it's about a $6 million project. We had originally estimated it would be around $5 million. And with the, we've had the unfortunate luck of having two regulations change fairly substantially. One is the FEMA floodplain maps, and we had to go in and do a design. They originally had a scour analysis, which is basically the amount of dirt and gravel that gets washed out to sea. I think the original estimate was about 5 to 6, and it went all the way as high as 24. And we had to look, and we were successful in negotiating with the state to come up with a change in that formula, so it was moderated to about 9. I think it was about 9. Larry, you're
about
right.
9,
I think we're in that range.
Like 8.6 or something, to be more exact.
So it had a fairly substantial impact in making the bridge design be changed to reflect the FEMA floodplain. The second thing was, we had this on Route 124, that the governor had issued the Green Streets Initiative, having sidewalks on both sides, having bike lanes on both sides. Obviously, you have a bridge section that goes over, it's really a causeway. It really doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense to have sidewalks on both sides and a bike lane in an area where it doesn't connect to anything per se. But we did revise the plan to at least connect Jackknife Beach, which is on the Chatham side, across the bridge to, I guess, the Harwich Beach. I don't think it has an official name, or I haven't heard an official name yet. So we did put that in as what they call a design exception report, and that was approved by Mass DOT. But those two changes, the redesign of the bridge to take care of the FEMA floodplain issue, and then the Green Streets Initiative, both resulted in additional project costs of the additional $1 million, which is estimated at this point.
Yeah, I think it's important, Chris, to point out that the funding we got for this project was, what, 3.5 million?
In grants.
In grants.
The majority of
At
this
this
is
point,
grant
we're
funded
at
still.
a place where we hate to lose that 3.5 million because the price has gone up. So we're desperately, we need to cover this to make it go forward.
So we're basically paying $1 million to save 3.5.
At this point.
Yeah.
At this point, yes. I wish it weren't so.
Are there any other questions for Chris or Peter, David?
The only other one we had was East Harwich.
Oh.
If you want me to try to do that quickly.
Oh,
East
yeah.
Harwich is number 27.
Right.
Under the plan that we have, the CWMP, the draft, it calls for 2 locations in Harwich for a plant or a recharge area. This one would be a recharge area anticipated in East Harwich. It's approximately 25 acres of property. in East Harwich, and we have an appraisal which is currently still in the process of being completed. But in order for us to take the material that is generated in the sewer project, we would initially hopefully send it to Chatham. Chatham would process it. Chatham has potentially a limitation as to how much they could take, so then they would pump it back to us, processed water, that would go into an area in East Harwich. I think there are other values to having this property as well. Having the recharge site to upgradient of our municipal wells is going to provide additional water into the environment that we will help. So I think it will have some value to us in that regards. But as part of the overall plan, it calls for us to have a process site or a recharge site in East Harwich. And what this money would do, it does call for the town to take by eminent domain the property in East Harwich for that purpose, to continue to move the plan forward.
Yeah, I think the urgency of this is more than what people may think, because we may not need it for 5, 10, 15 years. But if we don't act now, it's only going to get more expensive. So I think it's important that this one go forward. That's my personal opinion.
The problem is, you don't have this land if you don't secure it now. You don't know if it's an option in the future.
That's right.
Frankly, so it would take that option of being able to deal with Chatham, bringing the wastewater back here.
Right.
And Peter raises a good point, because in one of our meetings with Chatham, this is a critical factor that they're concerned about, that we have this land protected in case we need
Just one more thought in terms of that, while I'm thinking of it, is the site that has been selected, we would take by eminent domain. It also owes a lot of taxes on it. And I've had some preliminary discussions, I want to comment here, very preliminary discussions with our tax attorney. And there is the possibility that as we put money aside to acquire that property, that would then be used to pay the back taxes that have been owed to the town. So it is a situation in which we have the potential that exists, that whatever we pay for that site, we will be getting some of it, well, maybe a good chunk of it back in the form of the taxes being paid. So it has a little bit of a attraction from that standpoint too.
Thank you. Jordan?
Just wondering if we should consider having a map or a sketch in the warrant. We sometimes do with land purchases. I'm not really sure if it would help it or hurt it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We'll definitely put something.
I'm sorry.
I was wondering if we should have a map or a sketch in the warrant. I'm not really sure if it would help or hurt.
Oh, we need to. Every time we talk about land, I think we try to put a map in.
We should do like an info sheet that, I mean, we have the material, we'll put the
That's a
info
good
sheet
point.
together. It's a great suggestion.
Anything else for wastewater? Thank you, folks, very much. I'm sorry we had to change the agenda a little bit because there were some missing people, but thank you for coming. Appreciate it. And in the interest of equity, we'd like to do Harbor next, since they were on the schedule for this time. And
Sorry about that.
Sorry about that. Water Department.
Skip and I concluded, decided that we would give them a break. We know how understanding we are.
Sorry.
Sandy, did I see Sandy? Did Don come in? Oh, Don, there you are. I see you. You need to pull the chair.
It's very comfortable.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
This was good. This is great.
Our presentation was better than that.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, John Rendon, Harbor Master, and so I've...
And Matt Hart.
And Matt Hart.
Waterways Chairman.
Chairman of Waterways, yes.
And I would like to, because there's a lot of material here, we've allotted what looks to be 25 minutes. So if you can possibly keep it to that, John.
I'll do my best, Mr. Chairman. Just like to start by, there's many members of the Waterways Committee here, and as always, I really appreciate their support. We have a great working relationship, and a lot of things we do in the department couldn't do without the support of Waterways, so thank you for being here. I'll just go quickly. I tried to answer the questions that were posed to department heads, and so I've set up the briefing that I gave you, the blue folder, based upon the questions that you asked, so I'll try to go through these quickly. In the first section, I'm trying to answer questions 1, 2, and 5, which are the differences between FY15 and 16, reason for the increases in expenses that potentially can be deferred. I just did a summary sheet. That first sheet is salary and wages. Eliminated the Deputy Harbor Master year-round part-time position, which currently is funded at $24,410. That amount includes the 2% raise that was added in January of 15. And I added a full-time deputy position, which is at a rate of $55,613. And again, that rate includes the 2% raise that's scheduled for July of 15 by HEA contract.
Does it include benefits, John?
It does. Well, this figure is salary only, the 55.
Right. So
okay.
The
so
benefits and another what?
I'll get. Yes, sir. I was going to get to that, but okay. I was going by 35%. I believe is the. So it's about 19,000, I believe. So in just salary, the actual increase to the budget would be 31,200. In order to try to offset that, I eliminated a seasonal assistant harbor master position, which is funded at $8,890, about $9,000. An additional increase that I've requested is an upgrade from a grade 7 to a grade 8 for our executive assistant. Michelle Morris gets paid currently at $51,400 as a grade 7 with a step increase and 2% raise in 2015. So going to an 8, which would keep her at the current step throughout the entire year once if she was to be approved for a grade 8, it would be plus to the budget $1,751. Added a board clerk for the Waterways Committee at a value of $941. I added it because it's needed, and there was no other source, it seemed, to fund that. Discussions with the town administrator asked that I include it in my budget, and that potentially we could find a source of funding for that. I know some people went to in-house support within the town, so while I'm not crazy about having that in my budget, it is in my budget. And then the other addition is longevity, 2% for Tom Telesmatic, who is in the mechanic/dockhand position within the department, and that is based upon HEA contract. A couple of other things that quickly through the budget, there are a few increases in gas, water, and utility fuel utilities, and that was strictly based on direction from the Finance Committee, or the Finance Department, which says 5% based upon FY14 actual. Dock repair maintenance, I requested an increase of $3,000 we've had some piles that have 2 piles that have been dislodged. They were starting, they were weak, and of course over the winter they have now totally dislodged. And we had an electrical issue on the east dock. One of our main lines fried, and so that's a significant cost to replace. So from a maintenance perspective, I asked for $3,000. In discussions with the town administrator as we were going through our budget, in order again to try to offset what is my #1 priority in this budget, which is a full-time deputy harbor master, I reduced that to a $1,000 increase to try to bring the overall percent of change down from what it was. Capital outlay, $12,000 reduction from the previous year. I had $8,000 the previous year, and I asked for $6,800 to fund new arbors that They're arbors that are at the foot of the entrance to the east and west dock. They're old wooden arbors that are falling apart, and after this winter have really fallen apart, and they need to be replaced. So to answer if there was anything I could defer, I've highlighted there, certainly the capital outlay, I could defer that to next year and replace them and just take down the arbors that currently exist so it's not a safety issue and go without. And then the other potential deferment is the board clerk. One thing I want to highlight, eliminated from the budget, it's still in the budget, I haven't eliminated it, but I think as we move forward, I think I will have the ability to, and that's $9,000 that we typically have in our budget to fund credit card transactions. We do a ton of credit card transactions at the harbor, and this year alone it's projected to be over $10,000 that the town currently pays for when folks use credit cards. We are going to an invoice e-cloud system that the golf currently uses, I believe, and the town tax collector, and so we hope to have that online within the month, and that will save us about $9,000–10,000 annually. So in summary, I'd just like to highlight again, from my perspective, the significant increase that I've requested is the full-time position, which in salary alone will have a net increase of $31,000. And I'd like to just, highlight that I've proposed 2 reductions that'll bring that number down, and that is the elimination of the assistant harbor master, or the seasonal assistant harbor master position, and the reduction of the credit card fees. So, to Mr. Patterson's point, that is salary alone. So, on top of that is benefits, which I'm estimating to be about $19,000. I included, my budget. I won't go line by line. I think I've covered the biggies. If there's any questions on that, I'll go to the next set of questions, section 3 and questions 3 and 4, adding, reducing personnel or hours, and what my top budget priorities are. By far, my top budget priority is the deputy harbor master position, and you may recall. When I first got here, that first summer, myself and the fire chief worked together to develop a way ahead as far as maritime response. And we established a response protocol that eliminated duplicate response. They maintained a 22-foot ambar that was aging and required work and maintenance and training and overtime, and so I think Chief's credit and to the credit of a collaborative effort, Chief made a policy decision to take that boat out of service and rely upon the Harbor Master Department for maritime response. The Harbor Master Department, myself and staff, we're the boat drivers. We're the professional boat drivers, and I think Chief and his staff recognize that. And so we maintain now a 24 hours a day, 7 day a week readiness response posture for the town of Harwich. And it's not just the town of Harwich that needs this, but it's expected by the Coast Guard as well. Ultimately, the Coast Guard is in charge of maritime search and rescue, but they rely upon the local first responders in order to achieve that. And as I think many of you know, reading some of my monthly reports over the past year, I've been dealing with the Coast Guard at Sector Southeast from New England and the local community and the local stations on developing this mutual aid first response protocol, so that if a case comes down, the call comes to Barnstable County Sheriff, and then it gets sent out, and we are responding. But it requires us to have somebody to be able to respond. And right now, I'm it from a off-hour, nighttime perspective. I don't have anybody else, and I've been doing it for a year, and I need some help, and I can't just throw anybody in there. We have high training standards. We train to the NASBA standard, and I have on staff a part-time individual who is very experienced, wouldn't miss a beat if he were to go instead of I, and he's been terrific, and I thank a town administrator last year. He authorized a half position, but it's only 19 hours a week, and I can't use him any more than that. And I think it's unrealistic and unfair to expect him to stand recall or to be on the ready when he's only allowed 19 hours a week. And so that's the need. That on top of everything else that we do. But that's the critical need from a safety response. The expectation from the chief, the expectation from the police chief, the expectation from the Coast Guard is when that 911 call comes, or that Channel 16 distress signal calls, somebody from the harbor master is going to be immediately available to get underway, and possibly with the firemen. If it's a medical or fire, they're coming with me. But that's the need and that's the expectation. And so that is my #1 priority. My second priority is Michelle. She does a terrific job. And I have included, I'm sure hopefully you've had a chance to read the performance evaluation that I've done for Michelle. She goes above and beyond what needs to get done for not only our department, but for the Natural Resource Department. She does 2 payrolls every week. She does 2 budgets every year. She does expenditures for 2 departments. And the amount of work that she does is tremendous. And I know we've had, over the year, some staff who have gotten grade increases. I'm not clear on the process when that takes place, but I thought this, the likely process, to put it in my budget, to recognize and to pay her as she should be paid. So again, because of time, I won't go through her performance evaluation, but I just highlight the amount of dockage and mooring and waitlist permits and offloading permits and all the revenues that we have coming in. She's a one-stop shop, and she does a terrific job. Another reason that I'd like to bring in Bill Neeser full-time is because he can help with some of this administrative functions. We've been told by the finance director that we really shouldn't have the same person sending bills out and receiving the same revenue payments coming in. I would separate that so that Bill can take part of that duty and Michelle can take the receipt. He could do billing and she could take receipt. I think it's needed, and again, that's been highlighted by the finance director. I've included a couple things. I won't go over them, but just if you have a chance, read Bill's resume. It's pretty impressive. All those training competencies are training, those NASBA courses. Those are national standard courses that I've taken and Mr. Neeser has taken. And it's the standard across the state of Massachusetts. We are part of the Harbor Master Association, Cape and Islands, and we get grants, and we bring in these companies to train harbor masters throughout Cape and Islands. We are one of the most progressive groups in the country right now, and that's according to NASBA. We really elevated. We have a training council of Massachusetts that's setting that standard, and we are training to that. Job description, just so you know, I have a job description on it. I won't get into detail on it, but I included that as well. Recap of revenues. If you look at the spreadsheet with regards to the last 4 years, you will see that each year we've increased revenue significantly. FY14, over $1 million, $1,025,000 in revenue. And I just want to highlight, we've done that really without raising dockage or mooring fees. We've done it through management of our visitor dockage, initiatives bringing people here in the winter. I'll go through some of that stuff, but it's from enforcement, it's from management, it's from policy change, and again, if you look at the next page, this is where we are for FY15. You have the actuals as of March 20th, and my projected year-end numbers based upon last year's numbers over the remaining year. So again, we will be over, we will exceed our revenues from what we did last year. I'm projecting that we're going to bring in $1,037,000 in revenue. Next section, price changes. I'd like to highlight a couple of things. You know, I have two sections there, cost-saving measures, and I highlight the response protocol that we have with Harwich Fire. And while I can't put a number on it, I will say that we have saved the fire department overtime costs, maintenance costs, equipment costs, and we have allowed them to redirect their limited resources to other problem areas. And I think Chief would tell you, knowing full well that the maritime side is taken care of, and from a response perspective. And I think that's a cost-saving measure, because it hasn't cost the town any more from my response, from the department's response, but it certainly has freed up his folks to respond to other pressing matters. I've already talked about the credit card transaction fee. That's going to be a significant savings, and that is not included in the percent change from last year figure, which it would bring it down significantly. Increased revenues, I'd like to speak to things that we've increased revenues over the last couple of years, and we've done so without raising fees. It's been through policy change, it's been through enforcement, it's been through being innovative, and we've, over the last couple of years, almost $67,000. Annual increase in waterway user fees. By going after and being aggressive in our collections and instituting a waterway user fee for moorings, that's an increase of about $34,000. We added 2 slips at Saquatucket. I added one at the end of the west dock, and I freed up a slip to be rented by moving my patrol boat out to the east bulkhead. So we have an increase of $6,000. Instituted a late fee policy just recently, and that is a small number right now, 650, and hopefully it'll stay small. Everybody's on time, but it's something that we have tightened up our policies to ensure that we're not tracking people beyond what is reasonable for mooring and dockage renewals. Offloading permits, we've increased by almost $11,000, $10,725 by doing 2 measures. The A permit holders, which is our commercial fleet, they were granted the ability to also charter to supplement their income by the Board of Selectmen, something I fully support and agreed to, yet they weren't having to pay to charter like our charter boat captains were. It was a significant difference, an unfair difference, and so we instituted policy that if an A permit holder, a commercial permit holder, wanted to charter, they also had to purchase the C permit. And over the last 2 winters, we have drastically increased the number of B permit holders that are operating out of Saquatucket. And a B permit holder are folks who want to come in and operate out of, I should say commercial boats that want to come in and operate out of Saquatucket in the winter. We have boats from Chatham, Wellfleet, Provincetown. They come in, they purchase a B permit, and they pay for dockage. The dockage is at a reduced rate. It's a great deal for them. They don't have to deal with the Chatham bar, and more and more we're having boats come over. So those 2 measures alone, we've seen a significant increase. Long Pond, when I first got here, patrolled Long Pond, found on file we had about 50 mooring permits from Long Pond. You patrol the water, we had clearly a lot more than 50 boats on moorings in Long Pond. So we started to step up our enforcement. Today there are 113 mooring permits on Long Pond. Yes, sir.
We're running out of time.
Okay.
And you've got a big article that you want to talk about.
Okay. So I'll leave that alone. Moorings, Long Pond moorings increase.
You got a question about
law enforcement? Yes, sir.
Can I just ask on the personnel?
Absolutely.
Would you define I don't know whether we're mixing the terms, or you're mixing the terms, or I'm not understanding. Your deputy harbor master and assistant harbor master. Heinz Prof right now is serving two functions, I guess, right? Assistant harbor master, part-time, and natural resources officer.
Heinz Prof is a department head who is the natural resource director.
Right.
And he assists the harbor master department when he can in an assistant harbor master role. The assistant term, assistant, by state statute, allows him to be able to issue tickets and do, perform the functions within the harbor master department.
So when you bring on a new full-time assistant harbor master, Heinz would still have that capability, would be expected to still do some of that work?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand that, because the way
Correct.
the way it sort of reads here, it almost, in your text, it almost sounds like he wouldn't be doing that anymore, but you're going to bring on this new person.
Correct.
And you've already gone through these interview processes, apparently, you selected your candidate.
Well, he's on board now, so it would just be an
You're just
increase in
gonna
hours.
elevate him. Okay. Does that person live in the area?
He does.
Because that was your problem before.
Yes, sir. He lives across the street from Sacotucket Harbor.
Okay, great. That solves that problem.
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
Okay.
On Monday night, the Board of Selectmen, in putting together the ballot and everything else, chose not to fund the halftime, the increase in hours for at the harbors between this part-time deputy assistant, whatever, and the full-time. So I'm assuming that as you talk about this full-time person, we have not funded that yet,
No.
correct?
That's,
The
that's
current
fine.
position is only the 19 hours. He's actually right there if he wants to just introduce himself.
Yeah,
He was hired last year when the budget had the 19-hour position. Now the request is to go to 35, and there is no recommendation by this board to...
So far that is not funded, and I understand the need, but I just want to make it clear that so far that's unfunded.
We have to find a funding mechanism.
Well, yeah, that, what do
It's
you?
unfunded.
It's unfunded at the moment, so, just so that you understand that.
I listened to Monday night's session and I understand that.
Okay, I just want to make sure that everybody else does too, that we're not automatic. This is not an automatic right now, it's not funded. I have a second just comment on the increase from the grade 7 to the grade 8.
Yes.
Notwithstanding that she does a dandy job. We are going to go through redoing the job description, reevaluating it to make sure that it is appropriate.
The
To raise
administration
it to-
did not fund that. We did not recommend that that be funded. So at this stage, that's not included in the plan going forward.
Okay, because in order to do a grade change, you have to go through all of that. There's a whole process that goes with that. So that has not been funded as well. Okay.
Well, I didn't realize that because after our discussions with the town administrator, it was recommended for funding. So sometime between then and now, I guess it hasn't been unfunded. But
Unfortunately, we had to find $688,000, and the town departments paid for it.
okay. Should I continue, Mr. Chairman? Okay. Again, I know I'm short on time. I provided a look ahead. If we were to increase dockage rates and mooring rates, I did a comparison with other towns, and I have a spreadsheet in there of what it would look like if we raised fees by 10%. Looking ahead, hopefully, I'm going to get to this article right now, but hopefully we're going to be able to move forward with the replacement of docks at Sacotucket. And once we go and do that, and we have a plan in place, then I would be recommending that we have a rate change to help fund that. Receipts reserve, you asked for the status of that. I have 2 receipts reserves account. One holds moorings and 50% excise tax, there's the balance, and the other holds waterway user fees, there's the balance. The waterway user fee account will be utilized to fund the debt service for the $478,000 that is the town share for the Witchmer project. It hasn't started to be taken out, but that has been unlocked. The other packet that I have will address the capital article for the engineering design for Sacotucket dock replacement. My capital budget is the first sheet. I understand, the land side renovations was not recommended, and I agreed with that. We weren't ready because we didn't know what the status of Downey was, etc. So, and then I understand the $75,000 for the Witchmer bathroom I had to go forward. I think it was not recommended for funding by the town administrator, and so I haven't really addressed that in this package. I'd like to focus really on the engineering design for replacing the docks, replacing the bubbler system, replacing the fire suppression system, the electrical plumbing, redoing our harbor, because it is in drastic need of it. I've included the potential concept design of what the replacement docks would look like. Vine Associates did the study for us, and when I first got here, I worked with them and made some tweaks and made some adjustments, and this is the end product of where we were at in that regard. It adds a couple of 20-foot slips, a couple of 40-foot slips. It has all our passenger vessels located in one area, and it includes a handicap accessible ramp system so that we are in compliance with ADA. Another part of that study, the next picture shows how badly shouldered.
I'm afraid we're going to have to wrap this up. Let me just ask if people have questions for John about either the budget or the article.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Rich.
John, I think it's critical that you, in the capital outlay plan, you did a marvelous job defining the land side and the water side. And it's the land side that has not been funded.
Correct.
Okay, and it's the 500,000 for design and construction. The 500 is for the water side.
Right.
Okay, and that plan out in right now 17 is an expense of about $7 million.
Yeah.
So it's critical that that 500 be approved. And the capital outlay, you voted yes to that. So.
Yes. Correct. And so I was just trying to bring it forward. I hadn't been in front of the two boards, so that is indeed my priority from a capital perspective. I've included, some letters from our passenger boat captains who, it's not just me that's saying those docks are unsafe, it's the users, and I'll leave that to you. I've showed you some pictures, talked about shoaling it along that north bulkhead. If we don't do something soon, we're not going to be able to rent those slips.
Yeah, I have not heard anyone suggest that this is not a worthy project. It's always been a question of how to fund it.
Yes, sir.
Matt?
If, Mr. Chairman, if I could just be brief, one of the confusion things we have is a lot of people don't realize that the docks are self-funding. And what we're talking about, of that over $1 million, only $400,000 goes to the harbor for the work. What we're talking about is a small percentage of that remaining $700,000 and $700,000 that's going to other projects. So we're not only not using taxpayer dollars, we're giving more to the town than the average taxpayer does. And John has done a miraculous job getting that in line. And for us to move forward toward the replacement of the Saquatucket Marina, we need to know what it's going to cost, and that's what the design does. So I totally agree with John. His personnel, for right now, for the year, are very important, but also it's just as important that we work on the water side so that we can go the next step, which we also hope would be a self-funding, non-taxpayer to replace those docks. So we're a little bit different than the other areas. I know the fire department can't bring in money, or the police and things like that. We are a self-funding in this organization, and we'd like to work within that.
Thank you, Matt. Yes, Chief.
Just real quick, both chairmen, I just want to speak on behalf of John for his other full-time employee. Tongue-in-cheek, joke with the Navy and the Marines. The Marines joke to the Navy, we need a ride to the fight. That's why we need the Navy. We need a ride to the fight. And I think it's unfair to John to think that I can call him 24/7, 365 and say, I need a ride to the fight. He needs some help. Thank you.
And we agree with that. No, I agree with that. I mean, it's hard not to agree with that. John, I just want to comment that Skip rightfully has cut you short on time, but we're running out. But I feel pretty comfortable because you've given us a really well-documented presentation that we can review at our leisure. So thank you for that.
Yes, sir. You're welcome.
Yeah, not only that, but we got it in advance.
And we got
Not a week in advance, but we did get it in advance, which is a rare occurrence in this town.
That's the question of confidence you're getting.
I'll take what I can get. Thanks.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you all. Okay, Alan, sorry to keep you waiting. Alan, you're up. Okay, Alan.
We got 15 minutes, right?
Go. Right.
It's always a pleasure to join you all. Yeah. Jeanette Gonzalez, she's water commissioner, and Donald Bates is here. He's here somewhere. And I trusted Controller Sandy Cummins, and those that don't know me, I'm Alan Thompson. So moving right along, you each have a handout of with the questions and our answers. So just to quickly run down this.
Yes. Thank you. Has anyone else seen the copy?
Yes, please.
Alan's clock is ticking.
All right, the first question, the difference between the fiscal year 15 budget and fiscal year 16. We proposed an expense budget of $3,876,380, an increase of $435,175, or a 12.6% increase over fiscal year 15. What are the reasons for the increase, the decrease? Salary and wages, we have an increase of $26,569, or 2.5%. Other contractual issues within. As far as the salary and wages go, we have 2 open positions. We had the superintendent resignation, and we also have a laborer's position open, which we hope to fill in the near future. Utilities and operational expenses overall decreased in one aspect, 71,889, or 5.9. Although fiscal year 16's request includes many increases from utilities, treatment, chemical, laboratory services. The reductions we were made were appropriate. This is all taken place by a redistribution of a past line item of a $300,000 water main category that is where the reductions led at this point.
Alan?
Yes.
Am I reading this right, that a great deal of your $435,000 increase is debt service increase?
Yes.
That's correct.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yep, you're absolutely right. That's a major portion of it. That's the new water treatment plant.
Right.
We make our first principal interest payment fiscal year 16. We're on SRF funding on that, 2% interest. We don't know where the forgiveness is in it at this point, but the project is 95% complete. It is running. We've got fantastic numbers, test numbers on the plant. Quickly, I'll share with you a quick note. The raw water for iron was 2.1. That's out of the well. 2.1 is the level of iron in it. After going through the treatment, it's 0. So dramatic change. We have this new technology in there, it's called the Ceramics, that took it down to the zero. So for us, that's a real bonanza of a well field that we haven't been able to really use, take a total advantage of. Now we will. The manganese, again, the raw water came in 0.284, which is high. The finished product is 0.0206 of the treatment. So dramatic reductions. We expect the manganese will get better. So that, in that operation. So we are running. We were waiting for just a few technicalities. The affidavits were pretty much done. Final testing was done, and we're just waiting for a response from DEP to let us go online. So at that point, we will go online and be prepared for summer operation. So that's where our debt is. 324,341. That's the increase. The other areas that we attribute to increases, we have higher electric, higher gas. Out of the budget, we're spending $271,886 on electricity and about $14,000 on propane and natural gas. Natural gas runs the heaters in these plants, on the pump houses. We have propane and natural gas on our backup generation. All wells and all buildings have generation now. So we can run, if things go down, we're prepared to run. So we still turn the water. The other items that have made a difference were treatment chemicals, laboratory services, and safety supplies. That's a big number in the department. That's on 93,000 roughly. And the other part was vehicle repairs and services and fuel. That amounts to about 80,000. And technical and engineering services, that's for all our technology as far as computers, SCADA systems, all these systems, all these buildings, pumps run on electronics, the SCADA system. It sounds all the alarms, whistles, everything, tells us what's going on, and tells us when you're a human on site, or calling. So it even calls the human. So that runs about 128,000. So there's some items that are really fixed that we can't do a lot with, but we did adjust this budget. With the change in the leadership at the department, we have taken a different tack, laid awake at night thinking that, are we going to have enough revenue to pay off this new facility? Are we going to be okay, And with that, a lot of commissioners and Sandy and the staff who have been fantastic in this whole thing, and Chris Clark, who has stepped up as our temporary superintendent. We've all worked together to pull the department together here and kind of take a new direction as to, our projections. We live on projections, The whole basis of our whole operation, if it rains a lot, we pump less. If it doesn't rain a lot, we pump more. But if we pump too much and it doesn't rain, then we go into drought conditions and we don't pump as much because we have restrictions. For instance, in October, DEP declared a drought advisory. We had 37 inches of rain. We were on our downturn in October, and then it rained like crazy after that. So there you have it. So moving right along, the indirect costs increased 156,000, 154, 33%, and that's all the insurances, health insurance, retirement, auto liability insurances for the department, workers' comp, and interdepartmental chargeback. This is an item that's always been kind of struck a bone, but we're never quite sure where we are with it, and we haven't been able to positively budget for it. We are being on an enterprise fund, anything the town does for us, in one sense, we have to pay for. Which is okay, but again, we charge for the water, so you all pay for the water. But somehow, it's one of those things we really haven't been able to put a real solid handle on. So one thing that did happen in this budget was there was a $25,000 increase, initially, but we haven't seen how that's played out yet, for the closing. I have.
No, we haven't.
No, we haven't.
But
and that was an item.
In some ways, this is an accounting change of how you.
Yeah.
So the town's paying for it before this, is who pays what. It's really,
Yeah.
It's all this discussion.
But the thing of it is that, if we could get a better handle on these indirects, then we could budget better,
Yeah, Chris?
We are in the process of finalizing a indirect cost study that we will provide. I know Sandy worked pretty closely with the consultant to get a better sense for that. One of the reasons, or two of the reasons why this went up fairly significantly is on the insurance for the different elements, the plants, the pump stations. It was significantly undervalued, so that was trued up. And then the second one was, I don't think there was a real good analysis done in terms of how much support services that the collector's office renders for the water department. That was just really given a token number versus the actual number. So a large amount of this is that we've had it professionally looked at and professionally studied, and that's the reason for the adjustment.
The debt service, of course, that $224,000, that's on the new treatment facility. Plus, we had ongoing debt for Bruce Cahoon and other tank work. Are we adding or reducing any personnel hours? No, we're just going to fill the open positions we have, the superintendent and one laborer. We do intend to recreate a assistant superintendent. We used to have that position, but the prior superintendent eliminated it. We would like to have it back in place. As far as top budgeting priorities for 16, I think at this point the priorities for the department will be paying off its debt services, maintaining utilities and chemical and laboratory increases, in the building and vehicle maintenance services and agreements, and kind of get on track with the 7-year capital plan. And we have some fiscal year submittals. If you want to go over any questions on the budget side of it before we jump into the articles.
Any questions on the budget? Superintendent?
I don't have any questions. I've been helping him do it. Yes.
Okay.
All right, now let's move on with the articles. First one is the Lothrop Avenue tank. At this point, we have started to get involved in this plan. We have put it out to bid to paint and repair it. The bids came in a couple of years ago here at 2.3 and 2.8 million for a paint job and some welding. At that point, we had just done, prior to that, the Route 39 tank for 1.6 million for a paint job and 450,000 in repairs. That was a substantial jump, and it kind of set the tone for what the future looks like. So we've decided, for instance, Wellfleet just got a bid in for 2.1 million to build a new tank like ours. I can't remember if it's a 500,000 gallon tank or a 1 million gallon tank, but it may be smaller. But at 2.1 million, they don't realize the headaches to come as far as painting. So our plan of attack is the 200,000 that we're proposing for engineering is to step back, take a look at this whole thing, do a hydraulic study as to the location of the tank, and if the tank could be moved over to the Westgate property instead, or leave it where it is and take advantage of all the 16-inch mains there. And the other part of it is how do you maintain the line pressure for firefighting and regular water tap? So to go through this process in an orderly manner so that when we're done, we'll go out to bid, we'll have a bid price when we come back to move ahead instead of just guessing our way through it. We already have 1.6 million set aside and retained earnings that was appropriated at the prior town meeting 2 years ago, which would be put toward that, and any future retained earnings, we'd like to keep a reserve for emergencies, but if it's available, we'll put that towards it also.
And Alan, are you looking at the possibility of a grade level tank as well?
Yes, we are, and those are all the things we're looking at. Grade level, a different style without the legs. Legs are very expensive.
Yeah.
The cross bracing rots off before it's time. A lot of issues that way. So Pleasant Lake tank has served us well so far. I mean, that was a great investment.
My favorite was the standpipe on 39.
That's right. Exactly. The only thing they're working out really well for is cell phone towers, and all the phones up there. It helps pay for that. And then we're trading in one vehicle. We're trading in a 2004 F-250. We're trying to upgrade the vehicles to a heavier chassis. We carry a lot of weight in them. You get a lot of running around. The vehicle we're trading in has 175,000 miles roughly. It's used for plowing. We plow our own sites. Highway Department uses our vehicles for plowing. So they do take an active part in helping keep the roads open. And the only other thing after that is the N-Star electric bill. We're doing the unpaid article. It's roughly around 28,000. Well, what happened, we had a lightning strike, and it affected the meter. And N-Star just came around recently saying we owe them a few extra bucks.
How did they come up with a number? If the meter
well, we haven't yet. We're in negotiations, but that's appropriate. We're hoping to be a lot less, but we're not sure.
Tell them you're feeding the grid with solar.
Yeah.
And they owe you.
It is kind of interesting in the negotiations that we use 3 years back, which would be very favorable to the town in this case. They use 3 months going forward after they changed the meter, which was exceptionally favorable to their cause. So we are trying to negotiate that. A little interesting tactic on their part.
Oh, Dana.
So you don't, is there an exact number on that, or we don't have it yet?
We do. We have the exact number. I think this was just a round off.
Yeah, we rounded it off. It was 27.8 something. I'd have to give you the exact number, but we're hoping, like Chris said, to negotiate that down. We're going to use our own method of how we average bills when a meter isn't reading or dysfunctional. So
we are hoping that they will take, what the final negotiation.
Give them the lightning back.
It was an interesting event anyway.
And that would be funded out of retained earnings, there's sufficient funds in retained earnings, just source.
Yes, Linda.
A couple years ago, I remember the issues of marking out water mains and doing the markouts and having to do them again and wanting to get the utilities companies to pay for them, etc. What's the happy status of that?
It's still an ongoing issue, gas company is they're rebuilding their system at our expense, kind of like, so that's still out there. We have to take up the torch again, and go head to head, I guess. But we just had so many other things, so we figured that get through this.
I think part of that too was communication between highway and water. I think that we have taken action on to improve those communications so that they don't come back as many times.
Yeah, I mean, they're expecting, I don't know if they haven't made any payments.
No, they haven't. They still owe our department probably about $20,000. And we have information from legal counsel that I need to pass on to Chris so we can get this started again. If it was N-Star, this would be great because then we could negotiate our unmetered condition with them, but it's National Grid. So the last I knew was that the highway department would need to participate in a fee that's charged to the utility. So it would be like a united effort between water and highway to support charging a fee for all the marking out that's done and the remarking. Just again, we have to go, they requested a whole road to be remarked, that we marked in September. So we're talking a day or two of our staff to go back out and mark again, and it's expensive.
Because I remember being in that meeting where we talked with the grid people and everybody else, and it was, and I thought that there had been a lot of progress made in conversation, but it seems like we still have the same issues.
Yeah. The other side of it is too, is that if it gets big enough, maybe they'll run the gas mains down into these, well fields and we could get off the propane.
That'd be good.
That's another.
No moratorium on it.
Yeah. That's another avenue anyway,
Noreen?
So, yeah, we'll.
Noreen has a comment, Alan.
Yeah, we'll cover it. Yeah, Noreen.
No, just a point of information. Article 28, as it's written in the warrant, talks about actually doing repairs. It doesn't talk about engineering. So most people would probably know by the price, but some won't. So maybe the FinCom representative who's assigned to write that article up, Dana, will add a little clarity to that, to point that it's for engineering.
It's possible.
Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
Any other questions or comments for water?
You want to talk about rates?
You want to talk about rates?
Well, you have it in here, you haven't mentioned it yet.
Yes, we do. Yeah, we didn't want
That's
you.
my favorite
to
topic,
always
is
surprise.
we're going up by 1.5%, like year to year to year to year.
Yes, and
I know you promised me 1 year of hiatus.
FY15, the current year we're in, no rate increase.
Right.
So that's it.
No, I'm just concerned how long the population is going to sit there and take it themselves. I mean,
But you know what,
Yeah.
I have to say, at one point, I used to think, this is a tough situation, but you can see the numbers yourself, what it takes to bring the water up, to maintain the operation. It's not a free operation. Now, when you figure it out, divide your gallons, if you use 90,000 gallons, you're paying a tenth of a cent per gallon to put that water in your faucet. You go down to the local store,
yeah,
you
no,
pay a buck.
that's not the
for it.
point. The point is
But
that
the
it's,
point is-
it's year after year after year is what we're seeing. Plus, we're coupling that with, we look at what the school budget came in at, some giant number. And at some point, as you know, the people who work in this town have to pay the bills.
I agree.
And I don't know where it comes from, quite
I
frankly.
agree.
Yeah.
And you can,
Did everybody get this?
Yeah, being that, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
you know what, and we're a long ways from being the highest, I can tell you that. It's
Well,
pretty cheap.
The former superintendent made that comment a number of years ago.
I know.
And I think it's really kind of the wrong attitude, that so we're not at the top, which the way he expressed it was, so we have room, he says.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go there, but what I am gonna tell you is you're getting a good product for your money. You weren't getting that before. If your rate increases were going up and you still have blacklisted water, you got super room to complain. But we're investing into the system, it needed it, it's going down, or we're gonna end up paying serious fines to DEP. We have to do what we're doing. It isn't a maybe or a but or anything. We have to do what we're doing. We have one more well, we're just upgrading, and we have to do it. We've reached the max of what our assets will give us for funds. That's where we're at. We've reached the max. We're overtime. They're beyond any of that. So we have to invest. And the only way we invest is we charge for water, it goes into an enterprise fund, and it all goes back into the water. All of it. Doesn't go anywhere else. Goes into water. And we have a long way to go. This outfit's been in business since 1935. We have a whole bunch of pipe that needs to come out of the ground. We have a whole bunch of pipe that needs to be tested. We have a whole bunch of asbestos pipe that needs to come out of the ground. Wait till we get into that. It was cheap to put in. Wait till we take it out. There's a lot to this. And I'm going to tell you, in the future, if this charter change goes through, all the selectmen need to take a course in water. I'm going to tell you, you'll learn how complicated. The other side of this, DEP wants the town to reduce the per gallon per day amount of water that's being used. Currently, we're 82 gallons per person per day. DEP wants it to be 65. You know, all the rules are changing. Just like the East Harwich land parcel. It's so important for the town to buy that parcel and return that treated wastewater back there as a mitigation factor. Because our rate goes up per gallon what we pay DEP.
We've got some other issues that Dana would like to address.
Yeah.
Do you have an oldest pipe policy? You get rid of the oldest pipe in town each year or something, not work on it?
When we get there, yeah. You know, actually, like Chatham Road, 1935 pipe. So at that point, it may be, the testing may say the ductile iron pipe in Chatham Road is good pipe and realign it. So we clean it out, we do cement lining in it, we get new pipe. It may say replace it.
Mr. Superintendent?
They do have, thank you. They do have a, what's called a hydraulic model. So it has actually on CAD file where they show how the water system works, and they can record the amount of repairs that have been made to a certain section. So they have a prioritization, so as the pipes are deteriorating, more repairs have to be made. That will be the higher priority, obviously, plus the asbestos pipe is something that should be changed, just because it's very difficult to maintain. But they do have that, it's already in place.
Yeah.
Might I also add that we have our master plan that's updated every 3 years, and that identifies the whole, the plan that we're following. We move it into the 7-year capital plan, and as priorities or regulations change, we have to move things forward. But all of this is addressed in our master plan that we keep updated. So it's a huge document, you know, it's in a binder, and you're more than welcome, any of you, to come down and look at it. I'd like to see us get it together and have it available on the web, because I think it's important for all the residents and taxpayers to see what has to happen still to keep this infrastructure in place, and we have to continually make improvements.
Yeah, and all of those that haven't been down to visit us, you know, we're going to have an open house again, and we'd love to have you show us.
I've been.
Yeah. Angela went.
Angela was good.
I just have a comment to follow up on Peter. You know, corporations do maintain retained earnings, and that profit every year goes into retained earnings, and that retained earnings is you're using for hopefully capital building. However, at times, capital earnings are used maybe to give dividends back to the stockholders, okay? And in turn, that could be translated to lowering prices or keeping prices fixed, so that retained earnings maybe doesn't go to 10%, but rather go 7% and somehow maintain a revenue stream.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. Peter, I agree with you 100%.
Well, you might be missing my point as well, and that is, you know, I think the basic water consumption, and it's everybody's right? When you get into people that have extensive lawns and sprinkling and whatnot, I'm sure you have people that are using 12 times as much water as the average Joe, and they, quite frankly, I think they should be charged a premium for doing that.
Well, they are.
And obviously in the rates, I see that happening.
Yeah,
But if
that's happening.
DEP is trying to get you to be down to 65 gallons per whatever per day, then I think, you know, what's going to happen is you have to valve down sprinkling all of it. It's just, So the way it is, maybe we all have one section of lawn that we make nice and green, the rest of the yard isn't.
We can also lobby DEP to give us a break on the Cape, because
And it
that's
probably
based
is.
on one size fits all across the state. We don't have the same water shortage.
That's right. Well, that drought advisory that came up in October was not for the Cape, it was actually for over the bridge. And we're including the southeastern Mass.
But I'm assuming that perfectly pristine water, you give nice numbers on the increases, or percentage decreases rather, on some of the numbers when before you treat versus treat. That's great for drinking water. I'm not sure the grass cares, quite frankly, and there's no way to separate the two.
The thing of it is that our goal is more to the high-end users. We're pumping more water for, big lawns. Our direction is to go up there, not the average person that just uses basic water, period. Yeah, and that's not fair. I mean, that the person on the low end who doesn't want a lawn or doesn't have a lawn, they pay high rates. And we're trying not to do that. Basic rate, high-end users, big gallons.
So does anybody have a new question?
Well, I was just going to want just one comment on that, because on the Cape, we have sand, as you all know, we have a high water table. And so if you raise too much, it's not that expensive to drill your own well. And so in some ways, you got to be a little careful about how much you jack it up. We're not in the Midwest where you have to
Do an irrigation well.
50,
we're caught in the middle of the whole
200
thing.
feet.
I'm just going to be on the opposite side on the retained earnings thing, which is we have an organization that watches their money, collects it, so that when they have to do something, we're not having a $2 million debt exclusion. They're taking it out of the kitties. So, there's another balance there that says everybody gets a dime off their water rates, but then we have to pay for a $2 million debt exclusion in order to paint the water tower. So, I'm happy not to pay the dime if it means I don't have to pay the $2 million. So, that's just the other side of it. I understand the dividend part, but, they're talking, these people spend big money when they have to do something. And if they pay for it mostly themselves, that's cool.
I think if it's based on usage, it's fair.
Okay, anything else before we conclude this segment of the joint meeting? Thank you, folks, very much.
Thank you very much.
Informative. Mr. Superintendent, thank you. So you guys have to adjourn.
You said you don't have to.
We need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Linda?
Second, let's say something. Adjourn.
Say second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's like saying, hello, Doris.